God, I love being late to everything. It's been 2 weeks and the Owl House season finale is living rent-free in my head. It's time to exercise this hoe. I need to live my life. I need closure and I haven't talked to anyone about the show yet. So dear subscribers, you are my unwitting victims. I hope you look forward to my experimental editing. So, as us Owl House fans know, this awesome show had a pretty short run compared to where it was projected. It left us very prematurely, but not without giving us a show full of some of the most amazing characters, plots, world building, emotional highs and lows that I have ever seen. Guys, this show was inspired. And I have some words about the way Disney treated the Owl House, of course, and, is still treating the Owl House. But believe me, we'll get to all that. For today's video, I'm gonna let off some emotional steam that's been building up since the finale, and maybe have a little chat about what a beautiful show like this meant for us troubled adolescents everywhere. For those of you who don't know about the Owl House, guys, get out of here. Go watch that show, give it some love. I promise you will not regret it. I recognize that the show is really popular, but not everyone has seen it, so here's a brief synopsis for old time's sake. And I'm just gonna grab this one off Google because I'm genuinely terrible at making synopsises. Synopsises? The Owl House follows Luz, a self-assured teenage girl who accidentally stumbles upon a portal to a magical world where she befriends a rebellious witch, Ida, and an adorably tiny warrior, King. Minor spoilers from the show for this point on, for anyone who hasn't watched it yet. Go on some really cool adventures, exploring the new realm, meeting with some of the best side characters in all of existence. And I personally resonate the most with Willow. So you've got a bunch of characters basically living on a
giant carcass.
There's some plot twists thrown in there, a really good enemies to lovers trope, an enemies to besties trope, an estranged lovers to lovers trope. They've got it all, guys. I personally like that for the plot twists that appear in the show, they don't try to eat off more than they can chew with, and ruin things for the sake of plot twists. Cough, Steven Universe, cough. The development of the story comes pretty naturally, as life is always waiting to take a left turn somewhere. Each character feels like at least one writer in the team was pouring their own personal experience into them. Their struggles felt so believable, to the point where I reminisced myself about the community of people I used to surround myself with at their age. Aside from the story, which makes a point to showcase the power of found family, a theme that is constantly reflected throughout its 3 seasons, I also enjoyed a diverse and refreshing addition to the discovery fantasy realm genre. Western isekai, where fairies are considered bugs and wizards are an MLM scam. Now, my opinion doesn't mean much, as I'm not one of those essayists on YouTube with an English degree, or even someone who writes very often. I'm not too privy to dissecting media. I mean, I am, because art school, but that doesn't mean I'm very good at it. I'm honestly just wanting to talk about what I was left with. This isn't too much of an analysis, so don't take it too seriously. When it comes to the finale, the one that wraps up an entire show, using 3 episodes meant to encapsulate an entire season, I was kind of surprised at how they went about it. Let me explain. One thing that always really talked to me about the show, from all the possible character developments, and we sure got a lot of them, even with such limited time, was the underlying theme of self-doubt and unbelonging that Luz went through. Although I resonate more with Willow than Luz, growing up, I was in exactly the same situation that Luz was. A little bit too outspoken and self-interested in unusual hobbies that drove me to severe isolation amongst my peers. Something that never really went away. Finally finding your footing with people only to feel like this massive self-doubt and guilt about your own character, even for things that were totally not your fault. Huge spoilers again in case you didn't get the memo. Bringing up the finale, I was super excited to see these aspects of Luz's themes explored to a point and overcoming them. And I did, kind of. Her self-sacrificing nature, which was pushed to severity by this self-doubt and guilt, was finally most exemplified by her literally dying to protect the Collector, who she barely knew, leading up to her not quite dying, but having a really cool chat with the freaking Titan, which was confirmed to be King's dad. Such dad vibes here, look at him. It was also an amazing moment. This aspect of the finale was actually my favorite because you can tell they went way out of their way to make time for this character who we've always wondered about. But the thing about it being that this person who Luz looks up to and idolizes really thinks a lot about her too. He's seen her grow and pretty much everything she's ever done while in the Isles, even her screw-ups. This being the thing that finally pushes Luz to choose herself.
Will you choose yourself?
But while I got to see Luz finally accepting herself, which I think was visually represented by her Titan form, we did miss out on a lot that we probably didn't miss. To be clear, I see little bits of my adolescent struggles sprinkled amongst the personalities of the main group. Willow going from being kind of a pushover to finding her voice. Gus's desperation in finding a friend group leading him to be taken advantage of. Hunter's family trauma, and so on. What was important about the show was the overlapping intricacies of these characters. The fact that they find each other and heal together. And especially the fact that they even exist at all for teens and young adults struggling with these issues to resonate with. What was lost in the finale was time given to also explore these themes to a point. The first 2 episodes of the 3rd season do a great job of exploring the end of each character's arc, but I was genuinely surprised in how little involvement Hunter had in facing Belos in the actual finale like everyone expected. Amity facing Adalia, Luz and her mom having, this climactic moment. While these things occurred a little in the first 2 episodes of the 3rd season, you can definitely tell that it was cut short of what it could have been. Instead, the last episode refocused on Luz's theme, and we got some great bits of epilogue. I can't speak to some of the older characters like Ida, Lilith, or Rain, as I don't have much in common with them, but I do appreciate the fact that they represented much older people in media, with pretty common problems that you see older people face. Like how your relationship with your family can become estranged and distant due to childhood trauma, and that presenting a lot of struggles that are hard for even adults to deal with. Ida ending up isolated and having a hard time connecting or staying connected with people because of how this trauma continues to affect her as she ages. It's an equal shame that there wasn't much to do with Ida and Rain like we expected to see. But again, nobody is to blame here except for Disney. I'm sure that if given the time, we would have been able to flesh out even more of the already well-rounded character struggles. On the other hand, I was ready to see Belos beat up by Luz's mom at some point. I'm shaking my fist at the sky in this injustice. Again, it's not like the ends were totally loose. Loose. They were all being somewhat wrapped up by the end of the 2nd season and beginning of the 3rd season. They were all being wrapped up by the end of the 2nd season and the beginning of the 3rd season anyway. It just really upsets me to think about what we missed. Yet, I was extremely surprised at the level of satisfied that the finale left me with, after knowingly leaving a lot of stuff unexplored. Like, genuinely, I cannot get enough of this dude's shamefully obvious manipulation. Or the beautiful parallels to Luz finally becoming what she's always wanted to be, just not in the way that she expected. Which is such a common experience for young adults learning to grow into themselves. I also find it so refreshing that Belos was not only a completely believable villain, but that this believable villain was not redeemed in any way or sympathized with at the end. Yeah, get him, girls. You might notice that I don't have much to say about the Collector, and that is because I am quite an amateur at dissecting media and I have not much to say about this dude. Other than it's interesting to note that he's a character who is completely conceptualized by the writing team when coming up with a solution to wrapping up the rest of the show in 3 episodes. It's kind of cool to see how much that makes sense once you think about it. and how him being utilized as a wedge villain who somewhat reflected Luce's theme feels totally genius. Also, the aesthetic the Collector exudes is amazing. Genuinely, this aesthetic really gave me a feel of how out of place he's meant to look in comparison to the raw edginess that is the real Boiling Isles. It's like contrasting dreamlike modern fairy tales to classical fairy tales. So, I know Disney messed up a lot with handling this show, similar to how The Legend of Korra, where the later seasons failed to reach their full potential because the idea of renewing the last season was ping-ponged so much, the writers had to prepare for a premature finale only for them to be notified that this was no longer the case. One could say that the pacing was rushed a lot. It definitely was building up to a lot more than where it got settled at, and really could have used that extra leg room to end at a comfortable level. But for what they were working with, I couldn't be more proud of the writing team. And Dana Terrace herself for putting up with Disney to give us a proper goodbye. Seriously, I'm just thinking about the massive amounts of talent it took for this writing staff to take all the concepts they had, only to compress them into something so tiny while still being satisfying. Even Steven Universe, with the favorability and legroom that it had, ended up with an extremely unsatisfying and rushed finale in comparison. So props to everyone, y'all did great. Quick disclaimer, I really wanted to have something to say about the finale, but I'm completely aware that my faux analysis was kind of superficial. I guess I just wanted some fellow Owl House fans to crowd around and talk to and celebrate this show with me. I'm sure the show means many different things to many different people, and everyone took away something unique from the experience, which is what art is meant to do. So let me know in the comment section down below, what did you get from the show? What were some of your favorite themes that were explored, or your favorite moments from the finale? Any and all thoughts are very, very appreciated. Thank you guys so much for bearing with me. Until next time, goodbye.